Hey there, I'm wearing my blue collar shirt today. T-shirt. It's a white collarless shirt. Because I've got two white collar things, and this stresses the point. Point one is food insecurity for those of us who are on assistance. Why are we food insecure? You don't get because Social Security only pays about half of what you need, and the problem is the majority, if not the overwhelming majority, some people say 80%, some people say 60%, don't have enough money from their Social Security to really live well. So we have food stamps. It would be more efficient if they just give us more Social Security, but then there's trust fund issues and trust issues. There are people who think we should work too, so it's like, no, if I could work, I might. I might not, but I might. I probably would. If I could find a job where the boss doesn't care that I'm older and smarter. That's why they give retirement to people, disability to people 50 and over, pretty much automatically. There is that magic line. So, don't tell Donald. But yeah, but it's not enough money. So yeah, it would be nice to have more food stamps, which are low too, because again, they want people to work because marginal employees need people willing to work for low money to keep the prices down. So the middle class people and poor people too, there's a dual tier economy here, so they can afford to have stuff too. There's a market for cheap goods because there are people who have cheap. They need companies store quality products made in China, which is the second part of this video or the next video. But we'll get to that. So I was thinking today. One that's safe because I shop at two places. I shop at Safeway for the first part of the month when I get paid, and then Whole Foods in the next, because I have a Whole Foods store card, which is 30% interest if it's not paid right away, which is a whole nother thing. But I know because I have a second card, and if I keep it relatively healthy, then I've always got enough for food. I don't go hungry, even though it costs me money to buy food that way. Call it a poor tax. Okay, that's what they mean. You have to borrow. At least I don't have to. I don't have a car, so I can't go to and I don't go to check cashing stations. I'm too smart for both of those, but I can't get like one of those high interest car loan thingies where the fees make it look like it's high interest, because they have it costs money to make a short term loan. They have to recoup, but there are also people who like to suck the blood out of the poor. These people think they're going to avoid hell, except I don't believe in hell. So, they will definitely have to face the moral consequences by having to feel all the pain they've caused, albeit couched in the love of God. They still have to become aware of what they've done in their lives, and it's very embarrassing when they see it through their victims rather than through God. And there's no amount of indulgences or prayers or donations that stop you from having to deal with those things. It's not good to be rich and dead, or it's embarrassing. Let's put it that way. Anyway, so I was thinking. It would be nice if there was a fund, a private food fund, so that those of us who are on food stamps could get a little extra kickback, funded by donors to those stores. Like Safeway could have a thing. Would you like to give money for the food insecure, whose food, and then have it come through my store card, or even they could have a credit card. Safeway doesn't have a credit card, but Whole Foods does. To have a little money supplemented by from volunteers. Now, the problem with that, of course, is racism. There's food insecure areas, largely because there are places that food stamps don't want to be, because there are robberies at these places, because there are youth who are desperate and rudderless in gangs. And, you know, white kids just sell drugs to their friends. You know, others, you know, and white kids do robberies too, or they do burglaries. It's easier to do a burglary than a robbery. It's, you know, I had the skills, I never had the inclination or the need, but yeah, I know how to break into anything without even and without trashing the place. And you know, by the time they know they've been robbed, it's been days. So, but I don't do that. So, yeah. So, you know, everybody does crime. It's not a crime as an equal opportunity option. But yeah, you'd have to make sure that it's not just white people getting the kickbacks or the assistance from, you know, from richer, you know, the voluntary charity from our fellow shoppers. And then there'd be no problem with shoplifting because people would have enough money. You know, it would make up for this whole store loss problem. You know, if people had a card that you know added enough, if they had adequate, they wouldn't steal. Well, some would. Some people steal for the thrill of it, or just because, you know, they've got problems. Yeah, I know people who used to steal just because they wanted to be out of control or assert themselves. You know, people do that. People shoplift for that reason. Rich kids shoplift. So just because they think they can, and often they do. So yeah, because some people have deep emotional pain. It's not easy being young and drunk. Yeah, so they could do that. Have a as long as they take care of food deserts and, you know, do whatever security they need. But there are places, yes, that's why they had redlining too, because they were afraid of it wasn't just racism. It was racism. Don't get me wrong. There was definite racism behind redlining, and, you know, in loan companies, you know, mortgage companies just, you know, they just didn't want those people getting loans or those people moving into other neighborhoods. You know, racism sells among polite society, even if they're not, like, you know, yelling out bad words. They're still, you know, want to control who lives there. They want to select their neighbors, and they want sure those neighbors look like them. That's why a land value added tax is such a good idea, because it basically makes land available. So if you want to do racism, you have to be very blatant about it, rather than because, you know, location value of housing, which is why you have land value taxes, is censorship of who your neighbors are, and we still do that. You know, poorer people don't do that as much. Some do, and richer people, if you've got enough money, they will. But, you know, and, you know, people are growing out of that as we progress, but they haven't yet. So, yes, as long as racism issues are taken care of, then voluntary food supplementation would be a lovely thing. You know, there's a moral hazard, because government would then say, "Oh, they're getting money, and we don't have to give them money." It's like, no, you need to give them more money too. You know, private charity should not be an invitation to cut budgets. Just shouldn't be. You know, people need, you know, to cut budgets so people are made to work poor jobs. No, you fix the poor job, and you make it easier to do the poor job. I know, you know, teenagers, they get back problems right away because they're not used to standing for 8 hours a day. That was my daughter had that problem when she started working as a bagger. It hurt. She wasn't ready for that. You know, she had no, you know, and nobody was willing to do anything but throw her in the deep end. And she's, you know, has problems anyway with, you know, so yeah, it's especially when you've got oppositional issues. It's like, you know, working. It's actually not a pleasant idea for anybody concerned. So yeah, so that's the thing for part one, and there will be a second video to talk about the other part of tariffs. because there's an important part of tariffs that I didn't include in my, haven't included yet on my website, and I haven't, and on YouTube, or in my communications with the government, both legislative and USTR. So I'll do that. But yeah, food cards, voluntary contributions, subsidies for those of us who are customers, who could use a little extra every month, especially around time that the food stamps run out, unless we save the food stamps till the end. But even then, you know, it sucks to put groceries back, or to have to like empty your cart a little, even though you need the food. So, also, for God's sakes, let us buy toilet paper with it. Okay, you know, that's one of the onerous things. And they give cash because of it. Just, you know, just put toilet paper on the list of things you can buy, and trust that people won't go nuts on the toilet paper. So if you give people money, they won't sell their cards so they can buy. They won't, like, you know, sell their food stamps so they can buy food. And if rental is enough, you know, most food stamp fraud is because people don't have enough money to pay rent or just buy toilet paper. So make sure that happens, and then you, and make sure when you have people start working, if the hours are short enough that they can build up to a level of pain required to work. Because standing in one place hurts. When I went back to work in a theater, my leg was cramping something fierce. Eventually I got used to it, or it went away, but yeah. Standing all day hurts, and it's not for anybody. But employers can make it easier rather than trying people by fire. But mostly, give us some private charity that's automatic, that we don't have to go chasing. That it's just like on the card. And put more money on the food stamps, because people are still hurting. They're hurting more and more. Donald Trump was elected because people were hurting. He hasn't done much for them yet. Hopefully he will. When he gets, you know, if he gets around to it, we'll see. This tax bill will be evidence of whether he actually does care enough about the people who elected him, who are facing hardship, especially now. So, you know, groceries means more food stamps, more opportunities to help each other with food. So, and that's part one of tonight's blue collar videos, or white t-shirt videos. Have a nice night. We'll see you again in 5 seconds.